could start off by you giving us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and to your MSP.
Sure. It's great to be here. My name's Michael Horst. I'm the COO and one of two owners of Macktez Corporation. We are a consultancy MSP based in New York City. 20 some odd, close to 30 employees. It's our team size. We've been around a long time. We've been around since 1996. Our history and legacy is primarily as a consultancy. Very much a wide range of clients and industry, and we very much were a white glove kind of consultancy until the last 10 years, 8 years maybe, as we began to shift to standardization. In that sense, we're a reluctant MSP. I think I've described this that way before, where we are, we're sort of forced to recognize the scalability of some of the MSP tools. At the same time, we were intentionally resisting some of the traditional MSP tool set, the idea of patch management and antivirus as the core offering, that sort of felt a little bit hollow and not complete to us. And so it's only in the last few years where we're sort of looking at what we call the second generation of MSP tool set, that we're really embracing and sort of building out our MSP offering. So that's sort of the history of Macktez and where we are today. Our historical focus has always been sort of virtual CTO and all that entails. That is still very much at the core. We want to talk to clients at a strategic level. That is our positioning. It means we collaborate with in-house IT departments if those exist. Sometimes we are that in-house IT department. But that is our positioning, to try to keep an eye on sort of the strategic business focus for our clients, whatever that means, given the respective context. Our client base has evolved over time, not surprisingly. We started out very much in the creative space, design, architecture, music, so forth. And while we still have a nice footprint in that industry, we've expanded into startups, and nonprofits are another sort of key vertical for us. And that's a lucky coincidence of timing, I think, in large part. But yeah, those are our verticals at this point. So clients range in size from our smallest clients would be maybe a dozen to 20 employees, and all the way to the larger end, we have a handful of multinationals with seat counts in the hundreds. So that's sort of the range of our client base.
Yeah, that's great, and it's interesting to see how it's evolved. All the client base has evolved over time, and it's also interesting that you mentioned about working with some sort of clients that have got in-house expertise and some that haven't. That seems to be a sort of a common thing across the MSP community now, that there's sort of this mix of co-managed and you're the sole manager. So I think that's definitely a trend that's evolving.
Right, definitely agree with that.
Great. So when it comes to JumpCloud, I know that you've been a valued partner of ours for quite some time now, but just go back to the beginning. How did you initially hear about JumpCloud? So
we first, I just went back and looked at it through our old time records, May of 2015. So exactly 8 years ago, JumpCloud came up in a search for looking to solve the need to integrate LDAP with Radius. And that was our first introduction to JumpCloud way back in 2015. So that's a very different company and time than what JumpCloud is today. And of course, our relationship and utilization of JumpCloud has changed dramatically since then. But yeah, that was our first introduction to JumpCloud. And I think we signed our partner agreement in January of 17. And so we've been around to watch the evolution of JumpCloud as a product and a company, and that's sort of been a really exciting partnership.
Yeah, and was that reacting to a specific client requirement at the time, or is that more of a sort of a business plan from you to evolve that across all of your clients?
So we were already managing Radius with Open Directory, and we had a client need that needed to integrate with Active Directory, and so it was the need to sort of find a different Radius integration intermediary, and LDAP was it, and we didn't have an easy solution to that, and so it was in response to that specific need that led us to find JumpCloud.
Okay, and how was your sort of evolution of JumpCloud gone from there then, sort of adding more and more services across more clients?
So today, JumpCloud is, let me back up here. I mentioned that we are a reluctant MSP, or that we are sort of embracing what I like to clarify or characterize rather as a second generation tool set. And that for us is entirely about identity management as opposed to patch management and standardization. It is about identity management and all the security themes that fall from that. So for us, JumpCloud is front and center in our subscription offering, how we position those conversations with clients, as well as from a business perspective, a tool set. JumpCloud is front and center as the tool that we use for identity management. And as JumpCloud continues to evolve, we are in the very nice position of being able to start removing some of those secondary tools that we've been using over the years to help us deliver consistency according to device management and so forth. So for us, JumpCloud is the tool set that leads our offering because we firmly believe that it's the devices aren't that important. Yes, we need to manage devices, but it's really about managing those identities and the security issues that fall from that more than the device itself.
Great. So that's great to hear. So how has JumpCloud sort of helped your MSP sort of solve customer pain points then?
So one of the pain points or issues that it's been a growing theme and issue, the distribution of workforce. And over the past few years, with COVID, we saw a very quick and abrupt shift to remote, not just hybrid, but almost entirely remote workforces. And the need to manage onboarding, offboarding, security, and that sort of thing in a distributed way it was clearly at the foreground, an issue for which many organizations had not designed solutions to address. On-premise traditional servers and directory systems were still very much driving the start of authority for many organizations. And then we had add-ons as a way to leverage that for remote workers. And, in 2020, we had a very clear and abrupt need to start redesigning those solutions, managing directories in a distributed way, decentralized way, and JumpCloud fit the bill nicely. It was a huge tool for us in helping to begin to manage a distributed workforce for our clients, managing those directories and so forth. So that has been a trend that was already in place, but really accelerated in the last 3 years. And it's made it easy for us to transition from the idea of an on-prem server that manages all of those feature sets and embrace cloud-hosted software as a service. And we have JumpCloud at its core, managing those identities. And so the pain point for clients of both managing security, but then onboarding and offboarding, and doing that with confidence for a distributed workforce, those are the pain points. Those are the places where having a tool like JumpCloud allows us to very easily address and solve that problem for clients. Um, it's yeah, it feels in some ways mundane and administrative, but it continues to be one of the primary concerns for organizations with a distributed workforce, as well as one of the major security vulnerabilities. So it lets us continue to have that conversation, um, first and foremost about identity management and security.
Yeah, and just as a side note, just obviously because we're in different locations, are you beginning to see more of those workers go back into the office, or do you think that the sort of remote working is going to be a thing long term?
uh, that's such a great question. We are seeing, so we're in New York City. We have the ever-present reminder that the workforce is still remote. There's just the office space, commercial office space is vacant. Midtown is still empty by comparison. So in that sense, there hasn't been a return to the office in that way. There are specific industries that are really, really aggressively pushing back to office, but I don't think we're ever going to come back to the traditional view of everyone under the same roof. There are too many advantages, business advantages, in terms of talent acquisition and retention, that come from, as well as the efficiencies of time and commute and all that good stuff. There are very real advantages from a business perspective to offset the collaborative benefit of being in the same room together. And I think the hybrid workforce is here to stay. Um, we even now, and we're 3 years past that sort of dramatic inflection point, I continue to have clients come to me to say, "Hey, we're planning to give back the keys to the office next year. Help us plan a fully virtual remote workflow. What does that look like?" So I think there is a bit of a pendulum swing back to the office for certain organizations, but I think distributed workforce, remote workforce is here to stay. Uh, yeah, I think it's here to stay. There are just too many advantages. I don't think it ever is going to go away entirely.
No, I agree, and I think that's pretty much a worldwide picture. I'm in the UK, and we're seeing pretty much exactly the same. And as you know from your experience with JumpCloud, we're a remote
Right,
first organization anyway,
right.
and so it's kind of, it just makes sense.
Yep.
So moving on, as a reluctant MSP or a sort of second generation MSP, if you were speaking to an MSP starting out today, or just getting, you spoke to someone, we're thinking of getting into the MSP business, what kind of advice would you give them to be successful?
Right. It's a bit of advice I think I wish I could have given myself. It's a willingness to be flexible and to adapt. I think that's at its core the most important piece for an MSP. Don't become too attached to a given solution or tool or product. Constantly evaluate and be willing to change. I think that inertia is inherent in technology and as well as business, and I think that works directly against success long term. That's where complacency, we fool ourselves in thinking that stability is, feeds efficiency, and there is some truth to that. But that also, I think, to a greater degree, breeds complacency, which is incredibly dangerous. So my advice to starting MSP would be make sure that you maintain a willingness to adapt and change course and be flexible. Um, that's right. I think that's the most important bit of advice I would give both the new
Okay.
MSP and wish I could have heard myself maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. And another general sort of MSP question that comes up a little, so I'm thinking about JumpCloud and other products and services, is how do you position and charge these to your clients? I mean, do you have the conversation to say JumpCloud is a line item in addition to the other services that you offer, or is it kind of a package that you put together that bundles it all in?
So uh, we've been around and working with JumpCloud long enough that what JumpCloud offers us has changed over the years. And so we have relationships where JumpCloud is built with legacy clients or existing clients in a way that's not what we would lead with today. But what we do today is we have essentially what we call, there's sort of two primary offerings that we use when we engage new clients. Uh, we have what we call our core suite, which is really a collection of all the tools that we think a modern, digital workforce needs to have included. And front and center is identity management, along with device management. Right, we need some sort of email workspace, and a set of other sort of security uh, pieces there, compliance issues, and so forth. Um, and that's sort of our core. We call that core. It is the core offering. But we also uh, recognize that many of our clients have pieces of that already taken care of in some other form or tool or whatever. And then our other primary offering is what we call identity management. And we don't lead with JumpCloud as the brand for that offering. We call it identity management, but JumpCloud is the tool that we make. We make no effort to hide that fact from clients, but we add on a few other things. So when we sell it, it's not just a reselling of JumpCloud, but it's bundled as a part of our identity management service.
Okay. Looking at the industry in a little more general, you mentioned sort of next generation MSP, which is kind of transitioning from a device to an identity basis. Do you think that's something that other MSPs are doing now, or are you sort of at the top front of the curve on that?
I never pretend or suppose to be at the front of anything. I mean, I think that's just a reflection of what's happening in the industry and the space, where everyone is sort of going. Um, you have the traditional MSPs that are, I think, MSP providers. Sorry, let me clarify that. The MSP providers that are trying to hang on to market share by acquisition and consolidation. Kaseya Datto merger, whatever that was the sort of headline example of this. And I think that is what necessarily has to happen to the traditional model when it doesn't innovate and move forward. And then we have the next generation set of tools out there, which are trying to solve these problems in a different way. And JumpCloud is one of those, which has for us, it's the leading option, which is putting a different emphasis. It's not about the traditional selling points for MSP and standardized fleet. And it moves in the direction of thinking about the user and security experience. And I think that right, it's convenient for us to describe ourselves, but we're simply reflecting what's happening in the industry and taking advantage of this inflection point as an opportunity for us to enter the space and essentially start anew as opposed to trying to play catch up. We admittedly didn't build out a sophistication of scripts and like remediation things that, catalogs that traditional MSPs might have at their disposal. We just didn't have enough time in that space in the traditional sense. And so now we can focus all of that entirely on the idea of identity and those sort of things, as opposed to the traditional tool set. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. And I'm also curious to know about sort of when new clients come to you or new prospects come to you, in that, are they more security aware than they were a few years ago, or has it not changed? I mean, what sparks the initial conversation from an SME or a nonprofit to pick up the phone and speak to you?
So it often is so to answer your question, yes, there is an increasing awareness of security in the world at large and in business. That's being driven either by headlines, because it's everywhere in the news, or by one of the bigger drivers for us is, funny enough, insurance. So of our clients, only some of those clients are governed by the compliance regulations that would raise awareness, right? It depends on your industry. If you're in healthcare or finance, those have been regulated, and compliance is a huge driver of these conversations. And we do still have some clients that either are in that space or work with that space, and therefore compliance and regulation becomes a driver to have these conversations. But by and large, and for the majority of our client base, it's the insurance conversation that raises the awareness of vulnerabilities or shortcomings in a security strategy for an organization, and that is simply a product of the insurance industry selling products, but also identifying vulnerability, and with actuarial sort of statistic to say, hey, we'll give you a discount if you have X, Y, and Z checked off on your cyber insurance policy. And from a business perspective, that's often one of the things that gets an organization like a nonprofit. Those are the triggers that sort of get those conversations in front of us. More dynamic startups and tech-facing clients and organizations already have a security awareness, and would be coming to us thinking more about scalability and a little less about security proper. Like that would be a given in those conversations, that we're going to include security, and scalability would be the sort of, I think, primary driver or theme in those conversations.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's good, because insurance is something that crops up a lot, and we speak about a lot internally about, with MSPs trying to get insurance, or to help their clients with their insurance. And I guess that leads on to another question, which is on a slightly different topic, but is around regulation of MSPs themselves. I mean, do you think that's going to come, or do you think that should come? Because at the moment, I guess anyone can set up as an MSP and start to offer these kind of services to their clients. Should this be regulated or not?
My instinctive answer is no, because I live in the U.S. in a heavily capitalist society, and I think, right, my instinct is to say let the market sort that out, and by and large that will be. And here, at least in the U.S., insurance is the corollary to cover the potential abuses or gaps where other cultures and countries might sort of try to minimize that insurance exposure with regulation. Given that some of the breaches have come through some of the big providers, I think that was a bit of a wake-up call to the vulnerabilities of the idea of either the provider or having a single small unregulated organization have keys to so many different castles, and in that sense, there might at some point be some space for whether it's regulation or some sort of oversight. I think in the U.S. that's probably more likely to take the form of an insurance checklist, right? If you reducing your premium by taking these additional sort of responsible and structured measures to sort of prove that your MSP is operating ethically and soundly in terms of security issues.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think anyone necessarily wants more regulation, but insurance is an interesting way of doing it, through the back door almost, that people are going to have to get their act together if they want to reduce their insurance premiums and work properly, or even get insured at all. Yeah, exactly.
Money talks, right? And if you can reduce your annual spend by doing a set of things, that's a very strong incentive. And minimizing liability, it is right? This country is highly litigious, and you can make all sorts of arguments that is not great, and that contributes to inflation and all sorts of things. But it does provide a very meaningful mechanism when the insurers produce a set of guidelines that are based on actuarial, money-driven exposure on their part, and that does compel a set of outcomes in the industry. So we'll see.
Okay, no, that's good. Well, one final question before we sign off, which is, if just thinking for a new MSP, or you're chatting to an MSP, why, if they've not heard of JumpCloud before, why do you think they should maybe take a look at us or have a trial?
What sets JumpCloud apart, I think, is why any new MSP is going to need to have some sort of directory management SSO solution. The piece where I would describe JumpCloud's advantages are in the breadth of the feature set, the dynamic development cycle and team that you have at JumpCloud. Just speaking to the evolution of the product over the years, how quickly that's developed, the commitment that JumpCloud has to the MSP space, right? Those are all very compelling reasons for a starting MSP to work with JumpCloud. The expanding feature set is great. It means there's a reduction of the number of tools that we need to leverage and cobble together to create a feature set, a product that lets us do what we need to do. That's both great from an economic perspective, but also from a consistency and a comprehensiveness when you think about standardization, compliance, facility, insight into your client base as an MSP, but then all of the efficiencies that come with that from an organization that's responsible for administration, right? So a single pane of glass, having all of those things integrated really does make a difference over time. And JumpCloud is making an effort to do that in a way that not all of the other players in the space are. And those would be very good reasons to pick up the phone and call JumpCloud for a trial.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for saying that. And thanks so much once again for being a great partner. I hope that we're going to have sort of great news in the not too distant future with some of the features that you've requested. I know it's going to be pretty exciting. And I wish you continued success within your reluctant MSP.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure working with you guys. For everything from last summer attending the all company meeting to these kinds of conversations, and we really enjoyed the partnership, and it's fun and invigorating for us to work with a company like JumpCloud.
Well, we appreciate it too, and the insight from the meeting you attended last year was sort of, I know everyone in the company understands a little bit more about MSPs from the feedback you gave us, which was super valuable. So thanks again for that.
You're quite welcome. Anytime.
Enjoy your day. Cheers. All right.
Thanks, you too.